Good morning. It's a great honor to be here to talk about the impact of fair trade, and not just that, but how your choices of making the world fair, of communicating fairness to the world, is impacting producers, small producers, about 1,000 miles away from Belgium. Yes. I want to start this by introducing this lady, how her life was transformed. She was born in a very small community to 2 farmers. And so growing up, farming was more like a breakfast and a supper, because you have to go to farm before school and then also after school. Looking at the various activities she undertook in the farm, it was very difficult for her to become a farmer. It was also difficult to talk about the fact that her parents were farmers, because in the community and the society that she lived in, farming was considered as a job for the poor and for the disadvantaged. And so knowing this, including her friends, they decided to study and do something else other than farming. And so she struggled through education, and the whole intention was, after all the hard work she did with her parents, it was still difficult for her to get access to the things she needed to enjoy life as a child. And so she struggled on, hoping to be in the medical field one day and probably turn her parents' farm into a health center or something other than farming. So after the university, she had the opportunity to have a meeting with a fair trade farmer. There she got to learn about sustainable farming and how fair trade is impacting farmers' life. There was a difference between what she saw and then the farming she experienced. And so that meeting turned things around. And now she is a farmer herself, not just proud to call her parents farmers, but also proud to stand anywhere and call herself a farmer. She's a cocoa farmer. She has some food crops and then also do animal farming. A fair trade farmer. This is because fair trade is making impact and changing the lives of farmers. This is Deborah Osei-Mensah. She works for a cooperative called Esunafo Cocoa Cooperative. It's located in the Ahafo region of Ghana, where it operates within 67 communities in the region. It works with about 9,400 farmers, small producer farmers, with an average of 2 hectares per farmer. This cooperative, I must say, also benefited from the TDC program on marketing and then financial management. That also has really transformed the cooperative, and I want to say thank you so much. So when you look at the first picture, that is one impact I will talk about from Premium. This is the office of a small producer organization. And then the second picture, it's one of the communities they work in. And so I just want to put this picture there so that you know, whenever you make the decision of buying fair, of talking about fairness, these are some of the communities you are impacting. These are some of the communities you are bringing light to. Esunafo started its operation in 2011, became Fair Trade certified in 2012. Receiving fair trade premiums, these are the various activities farmers do on their farm. The first one, as a farmer, when you wake up in the morning, the only thing on your mind is how to manage your farm against climate, against any other risk on the farm. So you do pruning, you do weeding, And then one is October, November, December, and then January, where there's a major harvest. You do your harvesting as picture 2 there. And then picture 3, you do your breaking of pods, then you harvest your beans. And then you do your fermentation. So after fermentation for about 7 days, then you bring your pod to the house on that dry mat, and then you dry your beans. So this is where our chocolate starts from, when the beans are dry. Before we look at the impact fair trade is making, I want to also dive into the challenges farmers are facing. Over the years, with my experience with my parents, I realized cocoa farming really thrives on good weather, and so it helps farmers to really plan their activities on the farm, when to weed, when to prune, when to harvest, and then harvesting was good. But currently, things are changing drastically because of climate. These are cocoa farmers that are affected by drought. It dries the tree, it makes it unproductive, and so this affects the income of farmers. Growing up in my community with my experience, I realized many of farmers, like my parents, depended on their cocoa farm as their major source of income. And so for us to go to school, it comes from the yield they get from their farming. And so if you are a farmer, and then within this area, your farm is like this, it's very difficult to put your kids through school. It's very difficult for you to get money to afford a nutritious meal in the house. This is how climate is affecting farmers. There's also another on pests and diseases. And so when there's a lot of sun, there's drought. When there's a lot of water or rain, there's pests and diseases. This is how it affects the pod. Your pod will grow, you are happy to harvest it, but the next minute, there's a disease on it, and you have to throw them away. This also decreases the yield of farmers, and it translates to low income of farmers. Farmers continue to also face the challenges of inflation in the midst of climate challenges, where they have to do more management. You realize the cost of inputs, the cost of labor, the cost of fuel, to make sure diseases such like this does not affect the farm also becomes very difficult. And so it continues to increase the cost of production, which again translates into the income of the farmer. This is how bad it can go. The disease can affect the entire pods on the tree. And so when a farmer wakes up to the farm and sees this, it becomes very difficult and demotivating to go to the farm. Amidst all these challenges, fair trade farmers are on a better way than any other farmers. We receive premium, we have the minimum price differential, we are paid a living income, and so these help us to mitigate some of the challenges we face on our farms. These are the impacts you make when you enter a shop and then you buy a fair trade product. The social impact is a child protection aspect. This is where we invest our premium, and with support from our partners, we make sure our children have the best of education, even in the rural areas. And so where there's a need to provide school uniform, where there's a need to provide school kits, we do that. Where there's a need to provide learning materials, we also do that for them. In the rural areas, we do have challenges of children dropping out of school. And of course, we don't want to leave them on the street. And so we provide technical trainings for those children who do not want to go through the mainstream education. These will help them to get employment, stay in the community, and then one day also become farmers. In the school, just like I suffered, where you go to school and then you don't have food to eat, this is what we do with our premium to provide school gardens. In this way, there's food for the students, and then also they get the chance to learn about farming. We don't want to take our children away from farming. We want to continue on farming. We want cocoa farming to be sustainable, but we want to do it right. And so we put them to school where there's a need or when there's time, and then we teach them how to farm in a more sustainable way and provide food for the school as well. We also care so much about women empowerment and gender inclusivity, and so we make sure at a very young age we have what we call the Girls Club in our schools, empowering them to take up positions, empowering them to be involved in decision making in their school, so that when they grow up, they'll be more empowered to be in leadership. We also empower our women through income generating activities so that financially they can also be empowered. These are all through the premiums we receive. We also have constant education with men and women so that there will be that kind of environment where women can feel free to operate. This is another important project we invest our premiums in, our community development. Over the years, we realized that sometimes the setting of the community also deprive our children from a lot of opportunities, and then also with that, they in turn too flee to the city to make life. And so with a premium, we make sure we are providing better school infrastructures for them. We provide accommodation for teachers because most of the communities are rural areas. And so when you post teachers there, they mostly like to stay in the city and then commute to the rural areas. This affects education because by the time spent to travel to the city, from the city to the rural areas, we realize time has been really spent. And so at the community, we try to provide accommodation for these teachers. We also provide good water for our children and then the community. Financial inclusion. Cocoa farming is a seasonal crop. And so from October to January, that is where the main harvest is. That is 4 months out of 12. So it means the farmer have 8 good months to survive. There's no cocoa, and so there's something else to be done. We do engage our farmers in what we call the village savings and loans, where farmers are able to save and then access loan when the need be. We also encourage them to diversify their crops, and so we have others doing rice farming, others going into vegetable farming, so that when there is no cocoa, they can still have money to survive, to take care of the house, and then the needs of their children. We also provide them with coconut seedlings or other fruit crops so that they can also earn income from it. We do encourage them to do house gardens. We are talking about living income, and they cannot just be buying food, and so there's a need for farmers to establish a backyard garden where they can feed the family from. And so that is also a priority we do train our farmers on. Environment and productivity go hand in hand. What I realized growing up was cocoa thrives very well when the weather is good. And the weather can only be good when we protect our environment. And so as farmers, protecting the environment, making it sustainable is our priority. So what we do is we provide seedlings for our farmers. They plant on their farm as shade, and then also to improve on biodiversity. As farmers, we also support the government through regenerating the forest, where the degraded lands we take over and then plant trees and then also food crops so that the forests can be regenerated. We also have engaged youth who support our farmers to improve on their productivity by giving them the needed trainings, supporting them in good agricultural practices and management practices on their farm to make sure they are making the best out of their farm. This is how we want our farm to be. Very productive. A tree can bear about 80 to 100 pods. There is a gap because now we do about 20 to 40, but this is how we want it to be. This is a well-pollinated cocoa, and so this is where we want our farmers to reach. So all our activities, we make sure is geared towards getting this goal done. As a cooperative, we also do not want to be so dependent on our premiums. And so with the premiums received, we also invest to make sure we are getting additional sources of income to support our farmers, mitigate against climate, support the systems that remediate child labor, and then other social issues. And so we have an office where we rent to the government. We have a water company. We have a credit union facility. We have poultry. We have a snow farm. We have a cocoa depot where we rent and generate income to support the activities of farmers within the cooperative. And the bigger one, about 2-3 years ago, we decided to have our own license to buy cocoa from our farmers. This will help us improve our traceability system so that to know our farmers better, and then also income from this will also go back to the farmer. So this is our license buying company, Adum Cocoa Buying, that buys from about 21 districts within our operational areas. All this that I've talked about is because of fair trade. It's because we are buying fair trade. And today, I want to call on all of us here to keep communicating about the impact fair trade is making, about fairness, and to have more fair trade towns like this. We need to buy more fair trade because the more chocolate you buy, the more coffee you buy, the more the companies source from us, and the more premiums we get, the more investment we make, and the more lives we are able to touch. We need to also hold companies accountable. We need to know where they are sourcing from. We need to know how much they are paying to farmers, and we need to know how responsible their purchasing practices are. From all farmers across the globe, we want to say thank you for believing in fairness. We want to say thank you for buying fair trade. You have made a real impact in our lives. And for me to be here, to be a farmer, to be proud to be called a farmer, for other young people to be proud to be on the field, is because you walked into that store and you chose to buy fair trade. Thank you so much, and we wish you all the best in your purchasing and in your communications. Thank you.